this computer, share screen, share desktop. Okay, so can everybody see my screen? It's just got some blue and pink smoke with shot routine. Just give me a nod or a thumbs up. Perfect. And we are on our way. So this week we are going to talk about shot routine, and I'm very conscious to use the phrase shot routine and not pre-shot routine. I think there's events that happen before you execute the shot. I think there's the execution of the shot itself, and then there's events that should happen, in my opinion, after the shot if you're looking to perform your best on a regular basis. There'll be a couple of crossovers in relation to what we spoke about last week in relation to quality practice, and there'll be a couple of references to some of the things we've spoken about in previous presentations. But it doesn't matter if you didn't attend those. We can catch you up on those. I can send you those presentations so that you can catch up as well. But you should be able to get something out of this presentation without having attended anything before. So the first thing I want to talk about is consistency. And consistency is the holy grail, really. I get so many students come to me and they'll say, I'm looking for more consistency. You know, tell me how to swing the club more consistency. Give me a more consistent ball flight. And I think if we're looking for consistency, and I know I've referenced this quite a lot in lessons, if we're looking for consistency in the outcome of the golf ball, then we've got to look at the consistency of our behaviours before we strike the golf ball. And that even starts before you move the club away from the golf ball itself. When we talk about shot routines, and in particular what's often referenced as pre-shot routines, we watch good players and we observe, I think, what looks a repetitive pre-shot routine. And I want to try and differentiate a little bit between consistency and repetition. And just hold on a second, I've got a little bit of noise I'm going to deal with. Ian, can you mute yourself?
I can't, because I've got a whirly wheel going, so I'm gonna leave the meeting and come back in, if that's okay. I wonder if you can hear me.
Okay, mate. No worries.
So apologies for that, but I've been trying to resolve it, but I'll leave and come back.
Okay. Oh. So we're talking about consistency, and I think there's the difference between consistency and repetition. What you see when you watch an elite performer is you see a part of their shot routine, and that, I would say, is fairly repetitive. But when we're looking at shot routines, I'm not interested in the repetition of the shot routine as a whole. For example, I'm not worried whether you have 2 practice swings. I certainly wouldn't endorse the idea of having 2 practice swings every time, and that would be deemed as a good, consistent practice swing, because I might not be ready to play the shot after two practice swings. Therefore, it might be more useful for me to have another practice swing. Equally, I might be ready to play the shot without even having a practice swing at all. I might just have motion a part of the swing, and then I'm ready to play. And I think that can change from hole to hole, from shot to shot. And therefore, I'm looking at consistency as kind of being, I consistently want to be ready to give myself the best chance of playing my best shot. The outcome that you see when you're watching golf on TV or you're watching good players play is you are seeing some consistent behaviours, and they're all well practiced behaviours that will link into, for example, the understanding of for us in relation to what we've spoken about before, in understanding personal par, shot strategies and quality practice. So I'm not overly interested in, as I say, repeating the same thing time after time after time. I want to make sure that we are consistently getting ourselves in a place and a state where we are going to give ourselves the best chance of playing our best shot that produces our best outcome. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some videos. Hopefully the sound is going to come through. It should come through fine. And what I want you to think about is what's going on in these videos, what's going on in these conversations. And I want you to, if you've got a notepad and pen, just jot some notes down. And then we're going to talk about kind of some of the content that these guys are discussing. So here's the first one. Jordan Spieth on the 12th hole at Augusta National.
Right, stop line. What's that fly to there? Could hit hybrid as well. Play a fade. What's the wind doing? Northeast is off your right. Yeah. I like the hybrid more than that. 230 hole? Yeah. I think it fits the shape of the hole better and it gives you more margin for room, you know. I feel like a 4-iron is perfect. Yeah, I mean, the lie's okay. I got to kind of hit it a groove low. Okay. But I still like this. I mean, if it ends up going long left, it's not bad, you know? No, I agree.
Lie is okay.
What's your start line here? I'm at the middle of the green bunker. You said it's off the right a little? Yeah, I just don't feel much of that right here. Yeah, I know, but yeah, it's not off the left. It's just no wind. Correct. Yep. Good target.
Better to be in the pine straw than the second cut. Can spin the ball. And that's why they're taking the hybrid. Start at left center with a little fade. Plenty of weaponry.
3 shots back. Huge moment on Sunday at the Masters for Jordan Spieth.
Go. 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 Go.
It went. It's still going. Jordan Spieth has that for eagle at 13.
So pretty amazing golf shot. And I wonder what you noticed. So I'm going to share with you, if this was a face-to-face interactive session in the same room, we could throw this out. But I'm going to share with you what some of the things I noticed and see if they match up with some of the things you noticed. And if there's anything that you noticed that I didn't notice, I can't see the chat box at the moment, but I'll have a look in a bit and we'll see what's in there. So I saw options. I saw 4-iron, hybrid, what-if scenarios, wind discussions as to it's east-northeast coming in off the right. I heard them discussing about where's the biggest margin of error, something we spoke about in shot strategies. Interestingly, 4-iron was the perfect club. He ended up going up with a hybrid. Where was their target? Long left. Okay if it goes in that bunker. Not sure he mentioned the flag once. Middle of the green was his target. The bunker at the middle of the green was his target. He was working on a shape of shot. He had clarity in the shape of shot that he wanted to play. And it's interesting where that ball finished. It looked like an amazing golf shot, but actually, how much of a miss hit was that? He knew in the air that was tight, and they were actually aiming to miss long left. He said, it's okay if I miss this long left. And he's just carried Rays Creek, and it's ended up an amazing golf shot. And it's interesting, good players seem to have the ability to do that. They mishit their shots close to the flag. But I think that's massively related to understanding their game and their shot strategies. So that was an interesting one. I also like the way he used the 4-iron and the hybrid. He got both of them out of his bag, and he got a feeling for what they were, what the outcomes might have been with each of those clubs. So that was Jordan Spieth. This is a pro called DA Points, and this is an interesting one for me. So again, what do you observe, and what do you hear, and what are you listening and seeing in this video?
Flag that lands short and runs up onto the middle left part of the green. Correct. It's going to come out okay? I mean, I think it can. I mean, with the hybrid. It's just getting it to come out on the right line, right? It hurt from the right. Where are you looking at the start point here? I mean, at the flag. Sitting a little this way. Yeah, I mean, it's not that I can't get it. I again, if it could come out left, it could come out right, or it could come out straight, just out of the lie. I obviously can't get the back of it very well. If there's any doubt whatsoever, just pitch it down and lay it up. Yeah, but the layup isn't necessarily a free. It's narrow up there too. Yeah, it's not a cakewalk. That's kind of my thing. Let me see where this is. 22 on 8 from the right. I like this just right of the flag. I was gonna say somewhere in the neighborhood of the bunker. You like? Yeah, at the right bunker is what I like. Yeah. Okay. So let's go ahead and commit to that.
I just love that interplay between D.A. Points and his caddy, Mike Darby. And when you're near the top of the leaderboard at the PGA, every one of these shots just vital.
Just get left. Just come on. Yeah,
Yes, for sure. And he knows if that stays in the right
out of
rough.
there. Yeah. Right.
So another interesting discussion, and what did I see there? I saw lots of shot detail. Initially, we were aiming at the flag. We were going to run it up onto the green with the potential to run it up onto the green. There's a bunker right. There's water left. There was a concern about his line. They talked about concerns on the line. Initially, he started off aiming at the flag, ended up aiming at the right bunker. He's talking about it could come out left, it could come out right, it could come out straight. He didn't know. He wasn't overly sure. So he's anticipating all scenarios. So they went for the layup, and they talked about the layup and think, well, the layup's not overly easy either. And that links into some of the stuff as we spoke about in the shot strategies, which is, well, actually, I'm going to be better further down there, even if I get it slightly wrong, than if I lay it up further back, because the layup's quite hard and then it's leaving me a longer shot in. And they've ended up going at that right-hand bunker. And where did it finish? He's finished considerably short of the green, but see how he's accepted that as an outcome. Just the way that he walked away from that shot. He understood the difficulty of that shot, and he's executed that shot, and he was just ready to accept whatever happened before he pulled that trigger. And I think that's quite cool. I've got one more. But before I do, I just feel I need to do this. Can everyone hear the videos okay? Just give me a thumbs up. Okay, perfect. All right, this is good then. This is working. I just had vision of me playing these videos and no one being able to hear it. So one more. We've got Bryson DeChambeau. Okay. Listen to this one.
Number one in any country in the world.
138.
China.
Okay, what is it again? So it's 26 air density. 26 air density to the flag. Correct. Okay, 10%. 38. 10%. 6, 7 short. 6 short. 10% is 12 yards. So 37. 38. Okay. 37. It's 26. Okay. 38. And this 5, 10 short. Okay. Let's talk about trajectory here. If you have a tie, it's something like that. That's on top? No. It's got to land them. What's it to the left or checks? Natural 29. No air density. 26 air density. I like just hitting a full 50 degree. Okay. Yeah, I like that. That's 8 run out. And then we have a little wind, so we didn't affect it. Hit it a little bit, okay? 8 or 10 short. Yeah.
Fascinating conversation between player and caddy. No time for them really talk about the lie though, which was amazing because every lie in the rough is different. Shows you everything.
So again, another very interesting conversation. We talked about detail, 26 air density. I think this one, I think this is a fun one. This caused quite a lot of discussion point at the time. Bryson's not the fastest player, and there's a concern that he's actually slowing the game down, and there's people following him with their too much detail, if you like. I think that we can definitely be quicker, and he could definitely be quicker. And for us, I'm absolutely not suggesting we start measuring air density, but it's definitely identifying what information is useful to us that we can apply to our shot routines that help us make better decisions, which give us more confidence and commitments that over the golf ball, which means we hit the ball less times, which means we end up getting around the golf course quicker. I heard them guys they were talking about percentage of yardage, they were talking about landing zones, they were talking about the trajectory, how the ball might react on landing, they were talking about wind conditions, they were talking about the landing zone as to how it might react on landing, and all of that contributes towards us being more confident and committed to the golf ball. So this is the first part of the shot routine that I want you to consider, and I want you to think about this in two ways. If you imagine that there's a line behind your golf ball and you're looking at the target and you're stood behind a line, and this is the think box. So you're reading, this is where you do all your reading and planning. And there's a couple of notes in the left-hand side there. The harder the shot, the longer it will take to formulate an action plan as to how you see that shot, what's going to happen to that golf ball, and then what you're going to take charge of and the action plan you're going to execute in order to produce the outcome. Gathering information and using previous experiences is a really important part of that process. And something I'm going to touch upon and show you a little bit later is when we practice and play, we're doing that. One of the reasons why we can do that, and if we do that smartly, we can create memories that we can draw upon, and that becomes really powerful when we start applying those to our shot routines. So again, as I said at the start, what you see on TV are well rehearsed and well practiced behaviors that have been developed over time. So speaking of time, how long should this take? Well, the rules of golf say you've got 40 seconds to execute the shot on an average. What the research would suggest is that you probably don't need any more than 20 seconds. Obviously, that changes depending on the difficulty of the shot. And this is where I would see flexibility. I don't think there is a regimented time that it takes for you to figure out how to play a golf shot. And for most club golfers, this is where it happens too quickly. The decisions are made too quickly, which means we stand over the golf ball with fear and doubt because we've not really considered our options. So what are those options? Well, we can assess the lie and assess the conditions. The goal in this area is about establishing what environmental factors will do to the shot center and how the ball might react on landing. So if you remember in our shot strategies, we talked about shot centers. What does the pattern of shots look like? Where is that shot center? And what's the environment going to do to influence that shot center? So consider this, and if you want to, you can write this down or you can pop it in the chat box if you want to. If I've got my ball sat in slightly longer grass, it's very wet, it's downwind, in firm conditions, what's that going to do to my shot center? Is it going to move it further away or bring it closer to me? And hopefully in that scenario, you're thinking it's going to move it further away. The wet grass and slightly longer grass is going to take spin off the golf ball. The downwind's going to carry it further, and the firm conditions are going to mean the ball's going to roll on more than it would do normally. What about if I'm playing a 50-yard wedge and I've got a spinning lie into the wind to a soft green with an uphill slope? What would that do to my normally practiced shot? I might have a prediction of what that shot would normally look like. Well, in those conditions, I might have to move that shot center further up because the ball's going to spin back. What if I'm on a fairway lie with no wind, but it's an uphill shot? What's that going to do to my shot center? Well, it's going to bring it closer to you, so it's going to make the shot shorter. So just by going through those processes, and again, it's something that needs to be practiced, something you might do quite intuitively, but it's something that you should do every time. And how long it takes you to do that is different on each occasion. But if you get it well rehearsed, it shouldn't take much time and you'll do it every single time. The next part of the process would be understanding the location of the target and the distance of the target. And the target might not always be the flag. So we need to make sure we consider that. And the purpose of this part of the shot routine, the pre-shot routine, is to establish where to position the shot center in relation to the target. So again, links back to shot strategies. If we understand the shot strategies, if we understand our shot patterns, this all becomes very easy and very quick to do. So if I'm playing to a left pin position, and what am I going to do to my shot center? Well, I've factored in the environmental factors, so I understand how it's going to change from normal, and then I need to position that. So I'm going to need to make sure that shot center is to the right of that flag. And if the pin's at the front, I'm going to make sure that shot center is slightly beyond the flag. And again, as a visual, I'd take you back to the shot centers when I was moving that shot pattern round, and you could see how that influenced and impacted the amount of golf balls that left me more birdie chances, at the same time reduced my chances of making bogey. So we've discussed the environmental factors, we discussed the location and distance of the target so that we can now position our shot center. We now need to consider options just like they did, what if scenarios. And this links into my personal par. If I've played a tee shot and I've now got 300 yards left to the green, and I've got 3 shots to get to that green, my options are I could play a 50 yard, 150 yard, and then a 100 yard shot. I could play a 150 yard, 150 yard, miss the green and chip it onto the green. I could play 100 yard, 100 yard, 100 yard. And all of those decisions are flexible in the moment and dependent on assessing the lie, assessing the conditions, the location of the target, and the distance of the target. So what if scenarios, I really like the idea of what's the best that can happen, what's the worst that can happen, and what's likely to happen. I think sometimes we choose strategies and we're too instinctive on making decisions based on linked into some of our previous experiences, but they're either based on the best and the worst. Well, if I get this wrong, I'm going to end up out of bounds. And we choose a strategy that avoids that, when the reality is that's not likely to happen. That's just what happened last time maybe, and there was a different reason why that happened. Well, what if I drove the green on this par 4 last time, so I'm going to have another go again? Yeah, that was an exceptional golf shot that probably is not going to repeat itself on a regular basis. So let's be careful of that strategy. If we're being offensive in that way, then let's make sure it's the smart strategy and not just the risky strategy. So again, thinking about, well, if I had 10 goes at this, what's the best that could happen? What's the worst that can happen? What's likely to happen to all of those shots? And again, that's helping you make decisions in that shot routine. And then we start to transition into imagery and practice swings. We're starting to formulate our shots, how we see our shot, how we feel our shot, what club we're going to use, the target line we're going to aim at, what we're expecting to see. So this again links very much into our quality practice that we spoke about last week, where we talked about prediction of outcome and kind of getting some clarity in what we're expecting to happen. So we're now ready, once we've read and planned our shot, we're now ready to move into execution and transition into kind of instinctive motion. So this is where we now start to repeat. And I think this is the bit that should be consistent. This is our friend Tiger Woods in the 2000 US Open. And I've just clipped some shots together and I've put a timer on the routine that he plays, the process that he goes through. So I'm just going to play this through now. There is no sound on this, so don't worry if you can't hear anything. Now I start the timer just as he steps into the golf ball. I want to observe and watch his routine as he stands over the golf ball. He takes a look at the hole, another look at the hole, constantly moving, constantly wagging. And then I stop the timer as close as I can to where he makes contact with the ball. So that one was 14 seconds. This is the approach shot. There's a couple of practice swings, imaging the shot. He's made all his decisions now. And now he steps out of his think box into his play box. And I think this is a really good image for you guys to work with. And I'd encourage you, when you're on the practice ground, one of the things you could do is actually put a club down where you go through some decision-making processes and you actually you physically step over that shaft. 13.6. Again, he's in his think box. He's transitioning from thinking to playing, step, and now he's off. 13.5. So just for clarity, those times I'm popping up on the left-hand side in that margin, they're the times, so that you don't have to remember them all. They're the times that he's boasting. Now, I had a go at this one. I'm not sure I kind of pressed it quite at the right time because of the camera angle, but it's still pretty close. So we're going to take a pause after this to ask any questions, if there's any questions from what we've spoken about already. If you want to get some ready, you're more than welcome to. 13.2. Just imagine yourself, if you were videoing yourself on a Saturday morning or a Sunday morning or in a tournament, what would you look like? How consistent would it be? What time would you post? Would it be a lot less? Would it be a lot more? And would it be as consistent? So you can see those numbers racking up there. There's something in that. And I had a go at this one as the last one. It was out the rough, and I just wondered whether it'd take any longer out the rough as far as the execution of the shot is concerned. But it wasn't noticeable, and I've got a feeling that would have been a bit more if I could have seen the whole motion of the swing. I would have got the step into, and it would have been in the 13, somewhere between 13 and 14. So amazingly consistent in the execution of his shot. As soon as he steps out of that play box, out of that think box into that play box, it's just about trust. There's nothing you can do between stepping into that play box and stood over the golf ball that's going to make any difference now. So you can't contribute anything extra by thinking anymore. But what you can do is you can mess it up from there. If you start thinking in that play box, you need to get back out because you are not committed and you are not confident stood over that golf ball. And they're the two things that we're striving for. There's a lot of research being done on this, and that stepping from the think box into the play box to the execution of the shot wants to be somewhere between 8 and 12 seconds. It definitely doesn't want to be any longer. And I think that's well worth you practicing and well worth you exploring. So we've spoken about Tiger Woods and the execution, and I'm going to do a putting one in a minute. But before I do, I'm just going to stop sharing. And has anyone got any questions? We got a chat. So Wendy, should you always have a practice swing? I think it's useful to do something. I think there's useful as part of imagery and developing the skill of imagery is being able to associate vision with a feeling. That's an important thing to develop and a skill to develop, I think. So yeah, do something, but don't make every practice swing must have a purpose. Don't do it for the sake of doing it. Don't do it just to move the golf club around. So it's a great question, Wendy. You should do something, but it should be meaningful and it'll be relevant to you, and that's worth exploring. Mick had a few lessons on this. Would you take seeing the shot from think box to play box? Absolutely. You're creating that image in the think box. That's the whole purpose of that process, is creating as strong an image as you can and then carrying that image and that feeling with you over the golf shot and just executing it. So think about, again, we're creating that action plan in that think box. That's where we create, oh, what if this happens? What if that happens? What if I did this? What if I did that? What if the ball does this? Right, now we need to start making some decisions. And now we're right, this is what I'm committed to. This is my action plan. This is what I'm going to step up, and this is what I'm going to execute. And that, again, is something I think needs to be practiced, and I don't think is practiced enough. And I think it's also one of the reasons why, again, we touched upon it last week, in quality practice, is why a lot of practice doesn't transfer from the driving range to the golf course, because we're not creating that. We're not practicing the whole process. We're just practicing a part of the process. So that's why it feels so different when we play. Would you recommend using the think box behind the ball rather than to the side, so it's more obvious you have stepped into your play box? I'd be interested to see where I'd be interested to see players explore that a little bit, and it'll be interesting because it might be different for each shot. I'm going to show you Tiger Woods putting in a minute, and this is where you guys are going to get a bit more involved. But it might be that the putting, the think box is in front, and you step in this way, whereas with the full shot and the full swing, you're more behind and you step over towards the target. And the reason why I would suggest that is going to be better for full swing is because our eyes are in the front of our head, and that's how we best see things. So we're going to look this way, we're going to see this way, and then we step in, turn around, and then we go and execute the shot. But it's worth exploring both of those, Mick. Yeah, no, good question, good observation. But I actually think it'll be relevant. My gut feeling is that full shots are going to be from behind the golf ball, and short game shots might be more to the side of the golf ball. Good question. Any other questions? Any other thoughts at this stage? No? All good? Right. Okay, let's go back into here. Right. Tiger putting. Now, I've got here, this is the 2000 Open. So he won this by about 50 million shots. I'm not sure, he might have been the only one playing, actually. But it was part of a remarkable run for Tiger Woods where he won all 4 majors in a row. So obviously someone on his game and someone who's performing very well. So I've managed to get 17 putts here in this final round, and we got some measures and got some stuff to talk about. What I want you to do is I want you to watch the first 4. Again, there's no sound on this. So I want you to watch the first 4. I want you to watch the movement pattern. There's the practice swings. There's the step into the play box. Club head behind the ball. Look at the line. Set the feet. Look at the line again. Draw back and go. Hardly any time. It flows. It's nice and easy. And it's going to be, well, we're going to talk about the consistency. And it's interesting, does it change depending on the meaning of the putt? You guys don't know what these putts mean to him, whether they're for birdies or pars, for bogeys. Does it change? Does it look the same? Any observations? You keep them down. So that's 2 putts he's missed. Practice swings. Step in. Club head behind. Look. Move the feet. Look again. Back. Execute. Okay, what I want you guys to do and start doing is you to have a look at that image of Tiger. What's he doing? And then I want you to start imagining yourself going through that same process at that same timing. So timing it in exactly the same way. Imagine it's you there. Imagine that's you on a Saturday morning on the first green at Mill Green or Dunstable or South Beds or whatever golf course you like to play on a Saturday morning. 9.6. Think about you on the putting green. What do you look like on the putting green? Do you just step up and whack it at the hole? Or do you practice this process? Do you practice this timing? Now, interestingly, they look a bit inconsistent to me. I thought this was interesting. This was the second putt, so this was the follow-up putt. And I wondered, would it take the same amount of time or would it be different because it's a shorter putt? I guess a part of me's thinking because it's a shorter putt, it doesn't take so long to look at the line. Right, you guys grab your putter, okay? And after this one, I want you to actually see if you can go through the process with him. See if you can follow that whole process. And what does it feel like to you? So you can stand up, step in, club head behind, check the line, left foot, right foot, check the line, back and strike. Doesn't matter what it's for, to win the match, stay in the match. Birdie, par, bogey. He didn't like that one, did he? That's because he was quicker. If you haven't got a putter, then just feel free to stand up and see if you can follow the process. Practice swings. Left foot, right foot. Club behind. A line. All instinctive motion. All in flow. Now I actually messed that one up, so unfortunately we're going to repeat that one because I missed my timing. This is the amateur production, unfortunately. Work it up to the professional status. So I've put this many putts on here so you guys can have a go. I'm conscious that there was no kind of practical element to before, so I really want you to give this a go. See if you can, even if you're not in time with Tiger, see if you can follow the process. You can also practice that bending the knee thing as well. That looks quite cool. This was an important putt to him. How much did it influence his timing? And this was the last putt on the 18th green to win the tournament. This was interesting. This was actually the one to win the tournament. Or he holed to win the tournament. It's only a 3-foot putt, as you can see. Still took him 8.5 seconds to go through that process. Just a testament to the professionalism that he demonstrates. So I'm interested. I would say, most of those were between 11 and 10, or by the 9.9, 11.1. I kind of counted as 11 and 10. And there's only 5 of those outside of that. Now, I've not looked at that enough, and I don't understand enough why they might have been. And maybe there'd be a pattern in that. Maybe they were just bad timings. Maybe they linked into the putts he didn't like or he got close on. But consistently, very, very good timing. From stepping from that think box into that play box and executing the shot. And that really is one of the strongest messages I want to get across for you guys today, is understanding, right, there's that think box space. And this is something that I've not come up with. If you want to explore this further, Pia Nielsen and Lynn Marriott run a company called Vision 54. They've written some books, and I think it kind of stems from them. That's certainly where I got it from. And I just think the concept is so simple, yet so powerful. And if we can populate and we can practice doing the right things and demonstrating the right behaviours in those boxes is going to have a really positive impact on their performance. So I want to stop there for a second and answer any questions that we might have. Did you all have a go? Give me some feedback on those that had a go. Definitely.
I hold 6 2-foot putts, one after the other.
Brilliant. Was it quicker? Was it quicker than you would normally do it?
Yes, definitely.
So you would take more time stood over the golf ball.
Yeah, I've made a comment there. I do tend to get a little bit. I stand too long over the ball, get a bit tense sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think quicker is probably better for me. Anyway.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think it's about finding your right time, but definitely quicker. Certainly, stepping from that think box into that play box is. And the time to execute the shot, that needs to be shorter for most people. If you're thinking stood over that golf ball, you're in trouble. You're inviting poor performance.
Mark, how do you think he's measuring that in his head? I have a theory that he's doing it with his breaths, with how many breaths he's taking. Because I doubt he's actually counting a timer in his head, is he?
Absolutely. It's what I said right at the start. What we observe as consistent behaviour, repetition, is the outcome of practiced and well-rehearsed behaviours. He's just going through the behaviour and it happens to be at that time, each and every time. And because he's in flow, it times the same repetitively, if that makes sense. So, I
doubt it would be a benefit to actually have, it being timed for you or you trying to time it.
Yeah, I think so. Here's where we might link into practice. If you're not doing this, if you're working with a practice partner, for example, I think it would be worth timing it, and I think it would be interesting to see what those timings came out like. It would be even better if you felt like you could do that on the golf course and see what that looks like on the golf course. And it's certainly something that I'm going to explore a little bit more when we get back to playing. Is right. Let me time that. Let's have some clarity. Right, where's the think box? Where's the play box? What am I observing? So you step over that. Now, how much time? And it'll be interesting to see the consistency of those. So what we're seeing there is he's not thinking, right, I must do this. He's just doing what he does, and it happens to time at that. And I think, initially it would be worth practicing, because if you're spending more than, I'm going to suggest 8. I think it should fit somewhere in between 8 to 10 to 12 seconds. I think quicker than that is probably a bit too quick. Longer than that, just what's the point? It's only going to invite thoughts and feelings that you're going to start having a negative impact. So initially, it might be that you're timing it for the sake of timing it, but eventually it will become much more natural for you.
Yeah, cool.
Jenny's asked a really good question. You said at the beginning not to think of repetition, but we've just seen Tiger doing exactly the same thing. And that's a brilliant observation, Jenny. Thank you. And this is where I think there's times to be repetitive and there's times not to be repetitive. So in that think box place, it's not about repetition. It's about finding the solutions. And we need to practice more finding solutions. I mentioned it last week in the quality practice that we're often given a solution by a coach. Right, if you do this, that will happen. You just need to practice doing that. But actually, when is that not relevant? We need to practice finding solutions and adapting solutions to the problem that's facing us. And that stepping into the think box, that's stepping from the think box into the play box, executing the shot, Jenny, 100%. If there's going to be an element of repetition, that's where it's going to happen. It's going to happen in that moment there. So that's a great observation. Rose was doing it quicker than Tiger. Judy was quicker than Tiger, and probably quicker than I normally putt. Thinking a competition will take time to steady myself or just take one more breath. Yeah. Because think about what interests me is it's not so much the time itself, as you kind of mentioned, Stu. It's what's going on in his head. What is he thinking about? What is he processing? What is he holding on to? What is he making sure is in place that gives him the best chance of playing his best shot at that time? And that's what all of that's prepared for. So, cool. I'm going to go back to the presentation because we've got one final area to talk about. And this is related to what happens after you've executed the shot. And this again is a critical part of shot routine that often gets missed. We often just end up going, it was good, it was rubbish, as an outcome. And it's purely judged on the outcome of the shot, which I know ultimately is obviously what we're being measured on, is the outcome of the shot. But we can't control the outcome of the shot. We can only influence it. And when we look at reflecting and reviewing on a golf shot, I like this as a little process to go through. First and foremost, were we committed to the action plan? Because if we weren't committed to the action plan, we can't review the execution. We can't review any decisions that we made because we just simply weren't committed to the action plan. Now, if we can start to identify why we weren't committed to the action plan, then that helps us going forward. We've got an opportunity to change that going forward. But that's our primary focus. If we're committed to the action plan, we then need to review the execution. The execution, I did execute my action plan really well. That gives you an opportunity then to affirm what you did well so that you've got a better chance of repeating it next time. And if you can be descriptive in your reflection and your praise for yourself, then that's going to be easier for you to remember and transfer into future shots. The difference between this and quality practice, what we spoke about last week, is if my prediction of outcome matches my actual outcome, I'm looking at leveling up the degree of difficulty. When I'm on the golf course, it's just that one shot. If my prediction of outcome and my execution, if my prediction of outcome and my actual outcome are very consistent, I give myself a massive pat on the back for doing really well and confirm why I did it well, and then I just move on to the next shot. If I look at the execution and it wasn't so good, I need to understand what could I have done better? How could I do it differently? So if I didn't execute my action plan, what would I do different if I had another go? If I was to drop another ball right now, what would I do different? So although that doesn't help you now because you've already hit the golf shot, what it does do, it starts to help create those memories that you're looking to tap into for future shots. So whether it be a technical action plan or it's just a feeling action plan and whatever you're working with at that time, what would I do different if I had another go? And I think it's also really important to reflect on the decisions that you made. Was there anything in the calculations that I missed? Was there anything in that think box that I missed? And this could be linked into putting. We often, fall in love with the line and don't hit the right putt. We can get distracted and we can get too distracted and we can almost get too focused on something, which means that we didn't collect all the information that we needed in order to make the best decision. So I think it's really important for you to reflect on, was I committed to the action plan? Did I execute my intended action plan? And reflect and review on that decision-making process as well. Which, again, time-wise could be very quick if you're skilled at it, but equally might take you a little bit of time. But something that you could do walking down the fairway. Ideally, something you would do before you put the club back into the bag. But if you wanted to, in early stages, you could do that walking down the fairway. So a little summary. There's the think box, where the brain is. You cross the line into the play box. I chose the Nike ball, obviously, because their slogan is just do it. So you got your conscious calculations, and then you move to instinctive motion. And that's your goal of a shot routine, certainly a pre-shot routine. Decide, picture, feel, then act. And then I could have added on there really review as far as the whole shot process is concerned. So I think that's just kind of a nice slide to take away and think about, and what does that look like for you? And how can we work on you developing those skills as well as improving your technique or golf swing. Implications for practice. How can we practice decision making? What can we do that influences and helps us with our decision making so we get better at that? How can we practice reviewing a golf shot? Well, we spoke a bit about it last week in quality practice. I think these two are very closely linked together, but it's something you've got to make a commitment to on the golf course as well when you play. And there's lots of different things we can do, as far as even writing a scorecard, keeping a little separate scorecard and little tally. And you say, right, my goal and purpose of today is to see how many times can I commit to a golf shot. So you create that action plan for the tee shot on the first, you execute that action plan. If you're committed, you give yourself a tick. If you weren't, then you leave it blank and you identify what you need to do different next time, and then you have another go and see how many ticks you can get in that round of golf. How can you practice flow? And I think, and how can you practice time? And this is where I think, Stu, speaking to your question about timing the swing, initially, that might be, I'm going to give you 8 seconds to play this shot. Go. Because you can flow in a swing with lots of different times, and you can spend the same time on each swing, but they all flow differently. So you've got to kind of practice those together. And again, I think that's quite an exciting thing to go and explore. Something a bit different that adds to the dynamic of practice. Because remember, ultimately, and I guess this is, again, a different way of looking at practice, should you not be practicing, or when should you be practicing shots, not swings? And I think we often go to the driving range and we just practice swings. But what if we went to the driving range and we practice shots? And I've mentioned it earlier, practice finding a solution rather than practicing repeating a technique or solution that I think is going to be the game changer. So practice to make memories. We've been a bit of a Tiger Woods show. So I'm going to finish off with Tiger. And I think this is a really powerful part of a video series that he did.
Dealing with pressure and understanding is that I think you have to have had the practice. You've had to have done the work leading into it. If you haven't done the work, then why should you expect it to all of a sudden come together, especially when the pressure mounts? For me, I felt like my practice sessions, I derive a lot of my confidence from my practice sessions, and that enables me to feel like, yeah, I can do this, because I did it in practice the other day. I did it 2 months ago. I hit this shot from this particular spot at my home course. And I did those little things that add up, and I remember all those little things.
I love that. He remembers all those little things. And I think we do a lot of practice. We get a lot of shots that we possibly don't make enough effort to remember, or we don't bank enough of them so that we can recall them and we can use them in the future. So shot routine is I think a massively important part of being a successful golfer, enjoying your game more and playing better golf. If you want to stand over the ball more committed and more confident, we've got to get you practicing those really well-rehearsed behaviors so that they are what you do on a regular basis, so that you're always giving yourself the best chance of playing your best shot all the time. So that's me kind of wrapped up. Where are we on any questions that fits into right and left brain activity? It does. I think that picture kind of probably highlighted that as well. You could use a picture of Shia LaBeouf. I'm surprised Nike haven't seen that. Yeah. What behaviour do you suggest after we've hit a rubbish shot? No different to the behaviour you hit after a good shot, Graham. It's an objective, rationale review of what's just happened, if you want to use that experience to help you be a better golfer going forward. Alternatively, you can get overexcited and very subjective about it and beat yourself up on a regular basis and have a negative impact on you enjoying your game and playing quality golf. But I'll leave that choice entirely up to you. Nick, yes, you definitely need to give up work and practice more golf. And I'll help you with that. Do you mean my swear words are appropriate? That might be a way of coping. That could be a coping strategy, as long as it's productive. Right. I used to have a shot diary where I would write my best 3 shots of the day in, might go back. That is a brilliant idea. If you take one thing from Wade, take it from Tom, not from me. You keep a 3-shot diary, a best shot diary. You write down in detail what you did, not just the outcome of the shot, but what you did to produce those shots. Because once you got it on paper, it's banked and it's there for you, and it's something you can go back. What are the patterns that you notice when you play your best shots? That's a great comment, Tom. Right, are there any more questions? Feel free to unmute and ask. If not, we're on countdown. I want you to practice this week. I want you to practice putting. I want you to do some timings. I'd like you to give me some feedback by Wednesday as to, particularly with putting, what you feel your timing is. So you can even record it if you want to. And so if I was to watch you when you went back to playing immediately after lockdown, I could watch you play the first 6 holes and I would know exactly what your timings would be and what your routine would look like, so that I could spot if Tiger changed his routine, we would have noticed that. And I want to be able to notice when you change and when your behaviors change. More importantly, I want you to notice when they're different. So have a go at that. And next week, I feel like we've covered some really good content that, if anything, I'm kind of starting to create content now. I'd almost like to go back over some of that stuff and just kind of tie it together rather than create new content. But I thought as a way of doing that, what I might like to do next week is try and cover some myths in golf. Myths like you have to get worse to get better. I think that's a myth in golf. Another myth is, I always swing great on my practice swing. I think that's a great myth that we need to chat about as well, and why that might be and why we might say that. So that's going to be next week's. If anyone's got any thoughts or content that they might like to discuss further, as always, please do feel free to share. And I'm also going to send you a link with just a bit of feedback on some of the presentations, just so I've really enjoyed them. So it's almost something I'd like to do and continue going forward. So feedback would be massively valuable on that. But in the meantime, have a superb weekend. Enjoy the sunshine that we're forecast, and I'll see you all again soon. So take care.
Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Mark.
Good choice of tracksuit.
Thank you, Nick.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Cheers.